Good evening, everybody. I'm excited to share the audience tonight with our good friend PrepperNow. We've been kind of bouncing around the schedule. He and I have been absolutely crazy, and it looks like we finally got a good night. Brother, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I agree. It's been my old boss used to say rollicking. I always liked that term, but yeah, it's been busy. But yeah, I definitely wanted to come on and always love the discussion with you. And
I
yeah,
appreciate
I'm
that.
excited. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And it looks like folks are streaming in. It's kind of an oddball time for both of us. So I know some folks are kind of like, oh, these two guys are on. Mary Tiger, hello. Donna, one of my mods, hello. Cold War, hello. Rapture Ready. Sup, brothers, as he says. Virginia Bushcrafter, Okie, hello, hello. All right. So as folks start meandering in, man, uh, I guess shoot, where should we start? I guess we can, for those who haven't seen you before or you may be new to them. I think our communities are kind of interlaced anyway.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, but why don't you introduce yourself, what the spin of your channel is, so those who are new to you may get acquainted?
Okay. I started on YouTube 3 years ago, not really even knowing what YouTube was. I didn't watch videos or anything, but this crazy thing started happening in the world, and I decided, okay, maybe people should start prepping because I had been prepping, and you're gonna hear some crazy in the background. My wife and kids just got home, but anyway. And I said, I'll start a prepper channel because that'd be something good to do. And then as I evolved, I came upon all these really awesome channels with people, and then I kind of met Angry Prepper and back when he only had 8,000 subs, and we started to chit chat, and I tried to I modded for him and still do. I just don't have time for it. But then my channel evolved because my skill set is I've been prepping for over 10 years, but I'm a history teacher by trade, and seeing all that was going on, I thought, kind of seeing that the prepper community was forward thinking in current events and stuff and trying to front run things. I thought, you know what, maybe my knowledge of all that would be a wise thing to kind of put out there. And so my channel evolved into that. And so now what I do is this thing called the Crisis Report. And I go in and I find all of the stuff that is going on, the conflict and everything. From I do two things. The first two-thirds is basically all of the stuff going on, conflict, wars, and stuff like that. And then I do an economic one at the end, and I talk about, right now, of course, there's a lot of talk about de-dollarization. So just kind of there, but just trying to, get people good information that is not really hyperbolic. I think there's a tendency of people to come into the community and just kind of like freak out and think, oh my God, I got to buy a grocery store and prep everything, and it's just that's not a good mentality, because first of all you'll go broke, but also
Yeah.
it's just you gotta ease into it, and there's great channels out there that are definitely help people. And so just try to be a helper, give them good information and keep them not crazy and freaking out and going out and buying like an MRAP or something. And
No.
just
Al-
just yeah,
Although an
keep them.
MRAP would be very cool,
Oh
I
my
hate
God,
to pay for the
I
JASE.
joke with my I say that on purpose. I joke with my wife. I'm like, if I didn't have her, I'd probably, if I like lived alone and wasn't married, I probably would have one. There's a guy down the street that does.
I'll tell you what, I was driving through Dallas and a guy had, those British Scout cars. They used to have a Hot Wheels
Oh
vehicle.
yeah.
The four big tires is probably about the size of an SUV. It's not very
Mhm.
big. And he was driving with one on a flatbed.
Oh
And it had a
wow,
little soul sticker, like he just bought it from some weird dealership. And he's just tooting a little tank down the road.
that's awesome.
And apparently you can buy one of those for about 15 grand if you got a bunch of 20 grand burning a hole in your pocket. But
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
and
Go ahead.
and actually it was history. It was history topics that kind of got the two of us talking. I don't remember
Yes.
what video it was of yours that I emailed you about, and I was like, man, that was interesting. And then we just started that conversation.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you had actually come on my channel, what, last September?
Yeah, it was like fall, something like
Yeah.
that.
And at the time, we were kind of expecting a train wreck. It was slowly happening. And man, since then, it's just been weird. It's been surreal. Is it just me or?
No, I agree, and that's the thing. I think people think that it's like a movie. I say this all the time on my channel. It's not going to be like a movie. Collapse is slow. It's not going to be wrapped up in a 90-minute time frame. Um, but to think right now that America is doing well and not in something that resembles, somewhere between the Soviet Union and Rome, I mean, that's just I don't know how to put it. We're in a collapse of sorts, which
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're all going to die, and honestly,
Yeah.
as I like to say, you could actually set yourself up very well. So
Oh
you
yeah.
whatever comes next is you're good for it. But yeah, it's there's things going on, and we need to be understanding and cognizant of it, from the whole war and geopolitics thing to just like food inflation and ability to get stuff and our money, and is it sound, and is it going to be around in 5 years? So plenty of things for us in the community to have conversations over.
Yeah. And actually, it's interesting you point that out because you look, even though when the Soviet Union did collapse, it was very quickly within months, and then the
Hmm.
Berlin Wall came down, but they've been struggling for a hot minute. It wasn't ta-da, no Soviet Union. This was years in the making behind
Oh
the
yeah,
scenes.
yep, yeah.
I
It
think
started
we're
in the
just
Yeah,
we're
I think we're like that, like mid to late '80s. If we're gonna kind of parallel it to what they went through, yeah, that's why Gorbachev came in, because he had glasnost and perestroika, and they tried to
Mhm.
do whatever they could to westernize and to, because they knew it. They saw the writing was on the wall. They knew that they weren't going to be able to keep going. The money wasn't there. The
No.
economy wasn't as resilient as ours was, and eventually on Christmas Day, 1991, they just, member states of the old Warsaw Pact started to secede. So,
And it's funny, and I guess we'll get into it as we go into the questions, but correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it basically the coordination of, was it Lech Walesa? I can't remember pronounce his name right. In Poland, the Pope John Paul, Reagan, and the Saudis playing games with oil that wound up
I know Lech
deflating
Walesa was, he was in, oh God, what was the name of his movement? It's all
the
coming back.
Union, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had the Polish movement of back then, and it was Lech Walesa, of course, which the legacy of his family is still kind of, they've got people in and out of the power structure, but yeah, it started with, I think you're right. I think it did start with oil, and they started playing around with it, and then they weren't as in tune. They didn't know the energy needs, especially as it evolved. But they weren't, they were more trying to be like us and show that their system of communism was the better system compared to capitalism. But the problem is that it isn't. Capitalism is much more
No,
dynamic, and
right.
communism, you don't have the innovation, you don't have any of the things that make your economy grow like capitalism does.
No, and it's interesting because it almost seems like what we're witnessing now is the inverse of that. Plus, what the British did to China with opium seems to be what's happening to us with fentanyl right now. I mean, I could be stretching there, but
No, I think you're absolutely right on that. It's, unrestricted warfare. I mean, how
yeah,
do you subjugate a country? You get them all addicted to drugs and wasted and
yeah,
doing bad things to themselves.
yeah. And I think you and I have been texting. There's been a group of us texting back and forth behind the scenes.
Hmm.
But to the point, so the fentanyl, the other incidents, and you spoke about those movements. So it kind of goes hand in hand with our topic tonight, small wars. And I guess the resounding question would be, what is a small war, or and what is the history there? So what are your thoughts on that?
As I said when we were kind of talking before, I mean, what's the definition of a war? You made a
Mhm.
good point. You said, we're kind of currently in a culture war. So
Yeah.
it can take on many different forms. It can be something like, within culture, or it could be, economic. It could be, energy. Or it could be just a conventional war. And sometimes there's things that are going on that you don't even know that are warlike and can have a very damaging effect, and there wasn't a single fire or gun that was shot. And so I mean, I think people hear the word war and they think people shooting guns, and I think what we need to do nowadays is know that that's not exactly what a
Yeah.
war is anymore, and it can
No.
take on many forms. And the Chinese have perfected unrestricted warfare, and it
Yeah.
is having a death by a thousand cuts kind of effect on America.
Oh yeah, no, I'd agree. And I think actually a lot of us we've been talking about small wars. I think Cold War, I wasn't able to jump in on that one, but he covered some stuff on the unrestricted warfare. Um yeah, and small wars, like a lot of people refer to guerrilla war, which really is guerrilla, which is small
Hmm.
war. I'm sure you know that.
Oh yeah,
For those who may never have seen the actual spelling. Um that goes back, the phrase was coined what, during the Spanish Civil War?
that
But
sounds
obviously
about
it goes
right.
back further, right?
Yeah, you're talking, I think, Franco and
That's right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly. I know it's more of a 20th century term than
Mhm.
anything else. So that would actually stand to reason. I think that was, gosh, late 20s or early 30s. But anyway,
Yeah.
so many
That's
wars, so little time.
yeah, no kidding. That's also where, Hans Guderian and Rommel,
Yes.
mastered their tank tactics just
Yep.
before World War II,
Desert
is
Fox.
in the
Absolutely.
Spanish War, which was interesting. My dad was a big fan of Erwin Rommel, so that's I grew up listening to my dad read those books.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's and this is not just a 20th century thing though. I mean, it goes further back, even as far as the Romans. So I mean, they used to do, raids and burning of farms. This is the Vikings were great at it. So this is a an ongoing thing uh, throughout history. But how would you shoot? I guess how would we lead to that next question? Is if a small war was occurring, what would be the signs? What would be people like us who are trying to pay attention? What would we be seeing? Because clearly it wouldn't be helicopters and tanks running around per se.
I think the main thing, and I think this is one thing that the prepper community does a really good job of, is disruption. Um, Whenever you see disruption, you can know that there's some kind of a conflict in the background of what is happening. So take the supply chain. Something has disrupted the supply chain, and now we can't get computer chips, and then computers go up 25% in price, or you can't get tissue in April of 2020, and everybody's at a Costco freaking out. So disruption is definitely something of I think of as a sign.
Right.
Conflict is a big word, and it can be any kind of thing. We have conflict every day, from our daily interactions to South China Sea, and aircraft carriers squaring off against each other.
Yeah.
So I just think the main thing is that whatever kind of is trying to change the course and pace of things to affect one person over the other in a beneficial way, even if it's got a negative consequence. So,
Right.
like China doing whatever they can to take as much of our economy away. You could say that for whatever reason, I'm not going to go into the background of it, but the health crisis of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
China has used that to their benefit. And so, by that right
Mhm.
there, by definition, that was a disruption. And they took it and they made it into a chess piece on the war table. And it had a lot
Yep.
of damage to us, and it's hurt us. I think everybody can agree with that.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting you bring it up because if you think about it, the nation that benefited the most is also the nation that was the source of it.
Yes.
Whether
Strange,
it was intentional or a very convenient coincidence, they maximized their advantage.
Yeah.
They also stayed closed a lot longer than most other countries, seemingly to create their zero policy. And it made no sense because everyone else was open and managed to be on an even keel, except for them.
Yeah, and I thought that was weird too. I was like, why would they, it's almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot. But at the same time, if you think about it,
Yeah.
it really did have a lasting effect on our accessibility of goods, medicines, all kinds of stuff. So that, made the price go up. And, anybody that knows anything about the Chinese financial system knows that it's basically whatever they want you to think it is. They put out
Oh,
the
yeah.
numbers, and it's, if you think it's any kind of close to reality, I've got a bridge in Manhattan to sell you. But I mean, it's they basically, I think, took it, and while they were going through it, I was like, why are they still closed? Everybody else is
Yeah.
opening up, things are getting better, and yada yada yada. And yeah, they did stay sustained, but I think that was honestly done to really throttle the flow of goods to the rest of the world to make inflation go up.
I I I think the same thing. And actually, it goes to. Now I'm going to get my business hat on here, but Michael Porter's Five Forces of Business, the power of a supplier. If the supplier just decided, yeah, we're not going to supply, it's not even a question of price up and down. They just shut off
Hmm.
supply. And it will, you supply demand curve. Your
Oh
supply
yeah,
suddenly drops,
economics
and
101, right?
right. This wasn't very hard to see how all these dominoes would fall looking back. But what about now? Somebody put in the chat, I think it was Lucky, shooting at power stations. Um,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. There's so many crises, so little time.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that there's been a few of those incidents. There's actually, I think you're, if you remember, in the fall or November or December when it was, there's the one in North Carolina. There was the one in Washington. There's been
Hmm.
that in California. Just think of that disruption it would have, or a hacking. What would happen if they, look at the airplanes. When they go in and they take out the flight radar or the
Right.
flight system stuff, or even just the flight information. I mean, that affects tens of thousands of planes and millions upon millions of people in the ultimate ripple effect, scheme of things. So right there, is that a small war? Is that like a little bit of a
Right.
disruption? And I think it is. So
And what's interesting is, you bring up the airplane. So we had Southwest got hacked, and how many flights
mhm,
went down the toilet for like a week? Like thousands and
bad.
thousands. Then didn't Tennessee shut down, or was it Tennessee? One of the states in the southeast had to clear their airspace for 4 hours, and nobody understood why.
Oh God, I remember that one too. I can't
Yeah,
remember exactly. It was like Nashville or something like that.
yeah. And then there
Yeah.
was the pipeline hack, which we all remember.
Hmm.
And of course, I just saw Vision in there. He's in Ohio. I mean, we just had multiple train issues.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I mean, I'm thinking of the French resistance in World War II. These are, I mean, granted, they couldn't hack. There were no computers really then, but, trains, things catching fire, just, German soldiers would get up in the night and there were trains on fire,
Yeah.
man, those are like the harbingers of this stuff.
Well, I mean, they're definitely. I don't know if it's just we're hypersensitive. It does seem like there's a lot more like chemical spills and plant fires and things like that. My wife, she is devil's advocate, and she always comes in and she gave me a thing saying that we've had no more train derailments than uh, any other time. Like it's actually gotten better on a 30-year timeline. And
Mhm.
so it's like, okay, but what's a train derailment? Is it an East Palestine, or is it a couple
Right.
cars that are floating into the depot and they get unhooked, and that some guy's got to go out there and get it back online. There's a difference in the kind of totality that the wreckage would be. I mean,
The
I think,
magnitude.
yeah, the magnitude. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna look back at East Palestine and just be blown away at what the ripple effect is gonna be. I would, I don't know. If I lived in that area, I would do everything I can. It's so easy to say, these are
Yeah.
not rich people, but I would do everything I
No.
can to get out of there. But a lot of them can't. You've got homes, and you've got to, you can't just give up your home. So I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do.
No, and it's interesting because folks in general, just can't relocate spontaneously like that.
No.
I mean, you can evacuate, but to relocate your life and your job, that's not easy. That's thousands of people getting affected every time this stuff happens. Um, it's it's kind of horrifying when you you
Yeah.
think about it. Um, and we're not just seeing it here. Do you think, would manipulation of people's behavior be a small war now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, psychological operations. I mean, just look at what um, Gables and they did in World War II on the population there. And I see it here. I don't know if it's because I originally, when I went to school, was going to be a psychologist. I didn't want to. I changed my mind, thankfully. But you look at everything around, and I don't know if it's just I've got like a major BS detector, or I don't know what it is, but everything. I've seen a lot of things as of late where I'm like, that just doesn't pass the smell test. And so, and it's tough because you'll see it and everybody else is like, oh, no, no, everything's fine. And you're sitting there like, no, that's a problem. I can't, I'd love to bring up some specific, uh, you know, uh, topics on what I think has been BS. I won't, but I mean, it's amazing to see how everything is. I mean, when you see some of the campaigns in the last 3 years and how hard they worked at people, I mean, it really is impressive, um, to see what they tried to get people to do and how to change their lives from, working from home to shutting things down to shutting your business to, you know, having the plastic in front of the cashier, the step on this dot and don't get 6 feet to the other. I mean, stuff like that. It's like I remember seeing that, and I'm just like, "Man, I'm just literally in clown world right now. This makes
Yeah.
no sense." Because 'cause I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "I could poke 5 different holes in this from a reasoned standpoint, and if you try to do it, you are literally shouted down by some crazy person,
Mhm.
with a face full of duct tape or something." And so, I don't know, it's been I've been frustrated, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm definitely more, reclusive now, I guess would be the way. I don't know, I have my
You don't
family and
wanna you don't
no, I
wanna
don't. I
people.
have my family, and I just wanna learn to make my own food and just be left alone. I guess that's the main thing.
No, no, I agree, and actually, I think, with the internet was already bad with how it affected teenagers,
Mhm.
but shutting people down and to where we just the only way we could interact was as we are now, but not in an educational context or like we are. People can be horrendous on Twitter and whatever internet platform, and they get away with it because there's no consequence. And
The
then you go
ability
to the
to
street,
interact with
there
people, like people, their discourse with people, and maybe
yes,
it's just the facelessness of the internet and the comment sections and stuff. People are in no way as courteous as they used to be. They're in no way as polite.
no,
There's a one-upsmanship that didn't really used to be there that is there now. I, of course, for what I do, I see it in real time. I promote in my classroom as much socialization as possible. I mean, I tell them that too. I said, look, we're undoing 3 years of crazy. You guys
yes,
need to be working with each other. You need to learn to interact. I had a situation today. A couple kids kind of sitting next to each other started saying words, and I said, look, you got to have conflict resolution. You're going to be out in the world, and people are going to say stuff, and You can't shut down. You have to, say, my bad, or you know what, I'm just going to separate myself from the situation.
Yeah.
And it's important, and they just, they really have taken away a lot of people's ability to have resilience and to slough it off, or whatever the heck you want to call it, when it comes to interactions with other people. And now that has added to the conflict, because like everybody's on edge.
Right.
I think someone said in the chat.
Yeah. Everyone is on edge. And again, I think, God, this is going to have amazing effect on the youth right now. Like, I can't even imagine as an educator the battle you guys are fighting. And I know teachers in my own circle who are just like, holy cow. Um, the kids don't know how to socialize. They don't know how
No,
to
I know.
interact. Um,
Even
and
my
for
kids, even my kids. I mean, my wife freaked out the other
Mhm.
day. There's one of mine said he's having my. I've got three kids. I got a 11, 9, and or almost 9, and 4.
Right.
And the 4-year old is said he's is having some tough time going to sleep, and he was likes to watch this, like, these crazy things on YouTube where they're video games, and it's creepy, and they're screaming, and then the 9-year-old is sitting there saying she has a bad dream every night, and the 11-year-old is got issues with stuff like that. And my wife was just like, look, we're taking away the screens for a month, we're going to
Mhm.
go back to basics. And like, we were out there earlier with them, and they don't even know how to play anymore, and we're like, just go outside, let's get a ball, let's go shoot some hoops, and or
Yeah.
go around the driveway and get on your bikes or your scooters, whatever, and just learn to be kids, because they don't have that
Yeah.
anymore. And there's
No.
so many, and it's so easy as a parent. It's so easy as a parent, because we get tired. We want to have our own time, just to
Right.
shove them onto a screen and just be like, okay, go away for a few hours. And you can't do that, because now even the stuff that they're seeing online is crazy. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's no morals or plot. Like, I grew up on Scooby Doo. There was morals, there was
Yeah.
plot, there's they don't have that. It's like screaming at a person playing Roblox.
Yeah. It's and even when my kids were at the house, they had a PlayStation. They get on a headset and play with their buddies, and there was at least collaboration, and
Sure.
they play as a team. Ironically, all of those boys wound up enlisting after playing, Call of Duty for 3 years. But now that their kids going on the internet and just being horrendous, and then they go in public and do the same thing
Yeah.
because they got away with it for 3 years on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
there's kids that there's kids I have that are destroyed, for lack of a better way of putting it. And
yeah,
I had this conversation with them. I said, look, your generation is dealing with things that my generation didn't have to deal with. I'm Gen X, and
same.
you've got artificial intelligence, you've got technology, you've got all this kind of stuff, that when you get out there, a lot of the jobs that were available for people my age are going to be obsolete. They're going to be done by computer programs. They're going to be done by, like, stocking robots and stuff like that. And so when you come out of school, you're going to have to be able to have a skill set for something that has not been rendered obsolete by artificial intelligence, technology, whatever.
Yeah. And it's scary. I mean, truly, it's and that might explain, between that and then the politicians trying to utilize this culture of grievance,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
I'm sure the internet is swarming with trolls from overseas. Again, back to the Cold War subject, or the Cold War, the small wars. I'm sure there are entities, like you said, psyops, that they're manipulating, seeking certain individuals to incite them
Oh, I
to cause a
absolutely,
problem.
absolutely agree with that.
And then
Yeah.
guys like you and I watch the news and go, why the hell did that guy shoot up Walmart? Or why did this guy run over people in the on the street with his car? And I bet if we dug, we'd found, somebody was inciting this person
Hmm.
for an extended period, or feeding them, things that would cause them to be like that. Uh,
Well, I
yeah, I
mean,
guess all.
all these people have, like, manifestos and stuff. And I'm like, where do you? First of all, where, like, I don't know, like, why would? I don't know. I don't understand that. Like they write out this big long thing, this thing about all the things they want to destroy. I guess would be the best way to put it. And I don't know. It's like
Like
if I were, I
manifestos.
don't know. Yeah, I just and there's like the Nashville kid. Like we don't even know that one yet. They say it's basically we they don't. It's so frightening they don't want to release it. And so you think about that, and you're just like, you know,
Mhm.
we have. I mean, this generation is unlike any other generation that has come before, and they have been put through psychological things that have dehumanized them, desensitized them,
Yeah,
and it's just it's terrible to see because uh, it's not getting better, it's getting worse, and they're not
yeah,
dealing with the root problem, so they're prescribing medication for it. And
mm,
having three young kids, and as you know, as a father, you hope to God that your kid will somehow dodge the bullet. So I don't know. It's this I feel like I'm in a very surreal time.
it
And
is.
I try to like, I'm like, well, God, I remember my parents, listen to me listening to rock and roll or whatever the heck I was in the 1980s, like Metallica, and saying, oh,
Yeah,
that music sounds
Guns N'
terrible.
Roses, oh my
Guns
god,
N'
yeah.
Roses, right? Like, yeah, how can you listen to
Ozzy.
that? Right. The good stuff. And, and you're like, am I just a crotchety old man now? Or is the world really just kind of on fire and crazy? And I think it's like, it's a little bit different. It was, I think, they just, Guns N' Roses was new to them, but it wasn't like it didn't make you crazy. It made you want to rock. But this stuff that's going on around
Right.
us, I mean, I don't know. It's otherworldly. I can't even describe. It's indescribable, basically.
Yeah. It's, and I think that is one of the most dangerous aspects if this is some kinda concentrated small war on the psychological side, because you break down the fabric of your foe.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's better than fifth column stuff, in my opinion,
Hmm.
because you don't have to commit troops. You've created the problem.
Well, I mean, like, look at you say breakdown, and whenever I hear that word, I always think the breakdown of the family. So you and your
Yeah.
wife, you've got children. How long have you and your wife been together, if I may
Oh,
ask?
25 years?
That's like, think about that. That is an anomaly now.
Yeah, it is.
That is not by any stretch of the imagination the norm. My parents are rounding the bend on 60 years. My wife and I just celebrated 13 years. My brother and his wife have, I think, 27 or 28. He's a little bit older than me. Um, these are not that's not the norm,
No,
these kind of this thing. And so the breakdown of the family is a huge thing as well. That has made it so the you're reliant on one person parenting, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's tougher.
it's harder.
It's
Yeah,
harder, right? My wife was brought up by a single mom, and she did an incredible job, all things considered. But
right.
she's not the norm anymore, and it's not that the mom or the dad is doing a bad job. It's just the forces of society and the trying to keep the kids safe, and then keep up with their homework and nagging on them and saying do this and keep up with that, and
Yeah,
all these other things in society are pulling away. I mean, it is a small war. That right there is a small war.
yeah, and it makes me wonder if it's not just perpetuated internally, but externally as well,
Hmm.
because it would be to the benefit of other entities that we have this issue.
Yes.
But, so I guess that brings us to another question. Are we witnessing small wars today? Hypothetically, of course, I have to throw that in there
Yeah.
so that the algorithm doesn't take offense and then, I become the chupacabra and they kick me off for 2 weeks
Oh man.
because they've dinged us both a few times.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. I play the straight and narrow now. We all do. It is what it is.
yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, even that's a small war. Not being able to
Mhm.
feel like you can say and speak freely. But um, yeah, there's it's all around. Everything right now is based in conflict. And if you've been on my channel for a while,
Mhm.
as a person that I don't teach it now, but I for a little while taught sociology. And when you're teaching sociology, you have to go into conflict theory, which is Marx. And Marx, the sociology lesson, is an interesting one. Very different than economics, but he says that everything is based in conflict, and that's how you affect things and change it and mold society, whatever, into your way. If you can get things to have conflict within itself, or whatever the things are, then you can manipulate it to your liking or to your benefit.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing all around us, is everything is being thrown into flux and conflict because there's some, people in the background that are hoping to guide things in a certain way, because ultimately it's just going to make them a crap load of money. I really just think it all
Yeah.
goes down to money. I do.
It and typically it doesn't it go down to wealth and power.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. Well, I can't remember who it was. God, it was somebody in Europe, one of the writers, who said that countries wage war when the aristocrats believe they would become richer or something like that. I'm
Mhm.
totally hacking up that quote,
But I
but
mean,
the whole
but it's true. I mean, it's that's why war is a destructive force. But when things are destroyed, you can quote build back better.
right.
So I think that's where we're at right now. Everybody's been talking about Tucker Carlson, of course, and this speech that he gave over the weekend. And the crux of what he was saying was basically that, is that right now we're in this kind of good versus evil
Yeah.
war, and some of them are small battles, some of them are big battles,
Right.
but we really are right there. And when you're seeing this, it is everything is based in destruction, and
Hmm.
which means that we're being driven basically by evil forces.
I,
And when
I
you're a good person, or you're just trying to be a good dad, or just a good person, you see this around you. It almost makes you, I don't want to say it makes you insane, but it makes you have times where you feel like you're insane,
yeah.
because you're just like, I was thinking about this when I was coming home. I was like, there's moments where I just don't understand the world. And I feel like I just want to find a place, wherever that may be, that is based in reason and logic, and the things that I thought ruled society 5 years ago, really.
Yeah.
Now that's not even there. It's like, oh my gosh, like I just there's a little. I mean, they're literally teaching kids now in certain math classes that 2 plus 2 is 5, or it doesn't equal 4. Like, what universe is that? I
Uh,
just, oh.
what's funny is you know, you and I were Gen X guys, and especially me, as an engineer, I've played with every computer from like the Commodore 64. Remember those things?
Oh yeah.
DOS, Fortran, all these different languages up until, Windows now and Mac and whatnot. And I see, but we had to learn Excel, we had to learn Word, we had to use tools. And I'm looking at a lot of these young people coming out of high school and college, and I'm like, hey, new hires, you take this Excel spreadsheet and I want you to average these columns and then give me totals, and put a graph. They can't do it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't, if it's not an app that just poke it and it does things, they can't logically structure their thoughts. And I'm like, that, how are you going to survive with no power? How are you going to survive if somebody's aircraft are flying over your city dropping bombs?
Well,
And
that's
it just,
another thing that I'm seeing in the classroom, is this thing that they're calling now, called learned helplessness, where the kids have no resilience. They've got no ability to go, oh my God, there's a problem. How do I find the way to solve this thing? They just kind of sit back and go, oh, well, I don't understand it. And they just kind of accept it and throw their hands up. And I'm
right.
like, this is not the way. Like, when you go out in the world, I tell them this all the time. I say,
Yeah.
folks, there's never going to be a time in your life outside of this venue where you're going to have people sitting there cheerleading you along to get through stuff and giving you extra help and all that. Like, this is it. There's going to be no extra help. It's going to be you against the world. And whatever you do with that is going to be on you. So the time to learn this resilience, and the time to like learn how to problem solve is now, you know.
Yeah.
don't get that skill, then you're never going to have it.
No, no, not at all. And you know, it's horrifying because they're going out in the real world. Heck, when they got participation trophies, I was happy if I got a T-shirt showing that I showed up at the event, even if I came in last. I was like, look, I got a shirt. You know, that was my participation trophy. I showed up and fell in the mud in the second play of the game. You know, but they can't, they don't structure. You notice they also went after the activities: Boy
Oh yeah.
Scouts, Girl Scouts, FFA, 4-H, ROTC, the things that taught those skills. And I don't see them as much anymore.
No, I got into education because I personally think everything they're doing right now is wrong, and I think it's just a bunch of people that are more concerned with getting their name on a building than actually trying to do things that are going to help society. And I think it really does come and start in the education centers. That's why I kind of went that way. I was like, I can do
Right.
probably the most help here, but it means I'm going to have to jump through some hoops and get into a position where I can be that jerk, essentially, to lack
Right.
of a better way of putting it, because we need it. We need to say, look, 25 years in, every year we get worse and worse. Maybe it's time to just kind of take a step back, look and go back to the basics. And they've made it so now all these kids, everybody's afraid of saying the wrong thing, and it's no way to run a society, as we all know. And we grew up, and my parents, my dad told me the greatest thing. He said, son, not everybody's going to like you.
No,
And I just, that to this day, I've always kind of lived by that, because he's right. But you're not supposed to have everyone like you. You're
no.
supposed to have things that you look at and go, WTF, but then you turn around and walk the other way. You don't sit there and
Right.
go, I need this removed from the world. I can't have this anymore.
I need this removed
Like
from the world.
seriously, like who are you? Like what? This guy.
No, it's true. I've actually heard these things, and grown adults screaming,
Oh God,
not
yeah.
not screaming like actual adults, stomping their feet like 5-year-olds. Where did that come from? Absolutely insane. It makes me wonder if we've, I think that's the most dangerous small war of all, is the destruction of our culture.
Well, that's going on in real time. The
Hmm.
American culture of it's funny too, because my kids, they want to be in the '80s so bad, because they feel it. They know that the culture right now is rotten to
Hmm.
the core, and they the culture itself is at a point where it's basically, everything's been done. And from here it's just kind of doing things that are so absurd, or like anti, that it doesn't make sense. Like, there's no stories anymore with like heroes. There's numerous shows on TV where everybody is a bad guy, and everybody's a bad person, and everybody's just doing things to screw each other over. So there's not this like moral base. We just don't. You know what it really is? We do not have morality in a lot of different sectors of
No.
our society anymore. And this is what the result is.
Yeah. I would 100% agree. I think you're not only seeing a cultural small war, and I think that's the worst one of them all, but
Hmm.
we're seeing physical ones as well. And I think what scares me the most is, we have the derailments, the stupid balloon that was allowed to go, that I could go on a rant for an hour about that foolishness. Um, these other things that are happening, the fentanyl, the border crisis. And then here we are, we have an entire group of people, and it's not just the younger ones, it's predominantly them, but it's a lot of others. They're oblivious to it. They're like, no, they'll fix it. I don't want to, I don't need to prepare for anything. Who's they? Like, I don't understand. It's interesting. It seems like the worst of the small wars, sabotage, and other things aside, is the cultural degradation.
All I'm doing at this point, my friend, is just bracing for impact. That's that's where I'm at. I don't see any leader coming to power to help us. I don't see
No,
anything unless there are just complete and total structural changes. I don't see anything
no,
being anyone riding the ship. I think we're going to hit the rocks, and at this
no.
point, I'm doing everything I can to tie me and my family to the masthead, so we are as well prepared as possible. And I think that's why I've always been a prepper, but I started as like a hurricane prepper when I lived down south. And then, in the mid 2000 or 2015 or whatever, I was real worried about like, North Korea and EMPs and stuff like that. And I kind of intensified. But then when, Rona came around and I just started, I don't know,
Yeah,
it changed everything. And my entire look on everything. And then some other things have happened where I'm just like, look, well, there's no one out there that's going to help us. We have to
no.
form our relationships with our communities and our people. And right before this, I was having a talk with a couple prepper friends in the area, and I know our neighbors really well. And that's kind of where we have to be. We just
Yeah.
have to, form our little groups and our little mags or whatever the heck you want to call them in our area, and get as local as possible.
And it's funny, I think it depending on where you live, you're more or less prone to find other people. Like, I don't know how our friend Jason over in Manhattan, I'm sure
Mhm.
there are other preppers there. I'm sure there's a pile of them, but how do they find each other in that fiasco of a city?
I don't
You
know.
know?
I mean, I'm a former New Yorker. I lived there for 8 years,
Oh yeah.
and that's the last place on earth I would want to be if there was an SHTF.
Oh yeah. No, that would
I
be
mean, and
awful.
I know every bridge in that city. I've lived in Brooklyn and Queens. I wasn't
Mhm.
rich enough to live in Manhattan, but
No, I sure as hell wasn't. No.
well, I mean, no one is. I mean, you're like you run on a hedge fund if you're in Manhattan, but I don't know how he does, and I kind of know the area of the city he's in. He's and being in a small apartment and trying to, because even if you got out off the island of Manhattan, you've still got just miles and miles and miles of urban center that you would have to maneuver and manage.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. And I remember walking, God, across Queens with some friends, because that's what kids did when we were growing up. And we went from almost from what was it, Nassau County, the first
Hmm.
county, or Suffolk, from right on the border there all the way to where the World's Fair was in Flushing.
Oh yeah, Queens. Yeah,
Yeah, right across the northern part of Queens. We basically followed the LIE,
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
and we almost got to where we had to stop because there was water and warehouses, and it took us forever. And we were just four kids just being stupid. We were
Yeah,
just like, and we were gone the whole day. Our
it's a
parents
long
didn't
walk.
care. Nobody had a cell phone. you know, my dad
Yeah,
was like, take $3 in quarters in case you have to call me and I have to go get you pendejos, and they were like, all right, and off we went. And yeah, I can't imagine. And that was years ago. I can't imagine now,
oh,
you
you'd never
know,
be able to do that now.
no. It's it's just crazy. And but yeah, I mean the small balloons, the small balloons, the spy balloons, the UFOs, the derailments. I just feel I'm looking at all this and I'm going French Resistance in
Hmm.
1944, but everywhere.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
may be completely wrong, but good lord, what the hell's
I
going
don't know.
on?
Every day it just seems like it gets a little bit more out of whack. And like now it's to the point like I used to show my face. And in June of 2020, when I was a few months old, and I had this conversation with my wife. I said, look, I feel like I want to come here and speak, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize, my job or have
No.
anybody come back on us. So she was one that compromised. She said, well, why don't you just not show your face? I said, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking back, like from then to now, and all of the changes that have happened societally. Like we're in a place where, like, I mean, it came out last week where if you say, and I don't use these terms, but I know what they mean, red pill and based, like you're considered like a domestic,
Threat. Yeah.
a DVE or whatever. I read this story. This is crazy. I have to say this. There's a guy that literally is an air marshal, and his wife had land. This is on Citizens Free Press. His wife had been in D.C. during the J6 thing, but
Okay.
she was in another part of the city completely. She just arrived in a plane and was there for something completely
Like
different.
business trip or something like
Yeah,
that.
like a business trip, and they had her on a list. Like, I mean, this is 1935, 36, whatever you want to say, Berlin at this point.
Yeah.
Really, in my mind, this is kind of where we're at. I mean, where you've got a point where they're getting rid of people for saying things, and they're doing whatever. And I mean, I know other stories that I won't mention here, but
Yeah, no.
it's really frightening to see it, because as a history teacher, I've taught it, and now I'm like, holy crap! Like, am I in the middle of something that is a parallel to that?
Yeah. And it's horrifying when you think about it. You know, I actually had a coworker who texted me the other day, and I don't mention, where I work. Obviously, there's all the creators. We kind of certain things we don't
Hmm.
mention.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dude, was that you on Insta?" And I'm like, I don't know. Was it a sexy dude or what?" I'm just poking at him. And he sends me a snapshot of my one of my shorts, one of my short videos. And I'm like, "That would be me, bro." And he goes, "I had no idea. Bro, I've been doing this for the last 18 months." And I had the best conversation with a coworker. It turned out was like this secret squirrel prepper, and his wife just started getting into it, and they were
Yeah.
trying to figure out canning, and they went camping, and the tent collapsed on the kids, and the kids
Yep.
freaked out, and it was complete fiasco on a camping trip. And it's like, well, I'm glad to see you guys are trying, like you're going
Yeah.
out there. um you're trying to jump out and do something. But yeah, it's so I guess the last question, and actually we have some questions starting in the chat, but what can we do as a preparedness community? Obviously, we can't stop wars from happening. We can't
No, but
stop the PRC or the CIA or whatever
sure.
other agency from fighting. But what could we do?
Oh man.
This is a loaded
Um,
question too, actually.
I mean, I think right now everybody's got to get their. It's like I said earlier. You got to get your local community. You got to get people around you.
Hmm.
Luckily, we live in a diverse and large enough country where you can fly under the radar. Um, I don't know. I mean, I personally think things will start economically when
Hmm.
the ball really gets rolling, and we're starting to see it speed up. But I think the best defense against all that is having people of a like mind, whether you find that in your local church, your local neighborhood, your local whatever. Um, finding all that in people that you can trust, who can help you and you can help them should they need it. I think that's the only thing that you can really do right now, besides, of course, doing the basic prepper 101 stuff,
Right.
learning skills, learning to create power where there is none, learning to, make food last, and how to deal with things without power. I mean, that's kind of, I think, the only thing we can really do at this point. I don't see, like I said, I don't see political people coming in, and I think at this point it's just a matter of time, and it won't be quick. That's it's good and bad, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be, our world is going to change, and the
Yeah.
way America is, and whatever that may be, whether it balkanizes into smaller countries, or just kind of does like the British Empire and becomes this weakened state that is kind of just ineffectual. I don't know. But I know that having good people around you, having things like your debt paid off and a good financial standing,
Hmm.
and resources and stuff put away, that's your best defense. That's literally all you can do. And then from there, it's the other stuff. I mean, I don't know if people are faith based or whatever, but I've
Right.
gotten a lot more faith based. We love our church, and we're trying to get more involved there. And our kids are going to a Christian school, so they can learn
Right.
things that they're not going to get at the local indoctrination center, and just that
A
kind of
local
stuff.
indoctrination center. I like that.
So
That I like that, the local indoctrination center. That's
yeah, yeah.
that's a good one. So it looks, I kind of threw a question out at the folks. Uh, are we witnessing small wars? And pretty much the majority are thinking, yeah, we sure are. I had a question from, I guess I'll open to Q&A, but I had a question from, I think it was My Mother's Spark, and I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Question to PN: can all this be fixed at this point, or is it too late?
I don't think it can be fixed per se. I think we're kind of on a trajectory, but I think it can be mitigated and managed to what kind of a devastation are we going to see? You
Right.
know, I'm going to be doing the crisis report later, and today there were literally numerous people saying nuclear war, nuclear war, nuclear war. So I have no control over that, but
Right.
the people in our administration going out there and having these conversations. I mean, our foreign policy. I mean, my
It's
freaking cat,
garbage right
my
now.
freaking cat could do better than these people. I mean, literally. I mean, it is the point of absurdity. So
Mhm.
I think at this point, you just have to hope that there will be some people to get in that can kind of manage and mitigate the damage
Yeah.
to a point where it's not at a devastating level where it's a full-on war. You know,
Yeah.
we've handled the Great Depression. People will live, and even in war, people live, and we're all not all going to die. But I'd much rather go through an economic thing than a global war like World War II or World War One.
Yeah. No, that would be awful. And I think a lot of people don't realize that one will come home. Like, that's not going to be some foreign war where
Mhm.
occasionally a U-boat came into the Gulf of Mexico or New York Harbor and sunk something.
Yeah.
Um, all of the major players can hit us here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's numerous ways they can do it too. It could be a
Yeah.
hack. It could be an EMP. It could be a strike at a certain perfect time with a lot of important people there that are decision
Mhm.
makers. I mean, there's definite things that can happen. So that's why I
Yeah.
think it's better to look local. I think it's better to just kind of
Yeah.
focus inward on who's around you, what's around you, and get those people on board with you, and just say, hey, I don't know if you're noticing, but I'm noticing issues. Let's game out what would happen if there were problems. Like, what would we do? How would we rely on each other? And what would it be? What would it look like? I'm lucky in my little area. I've got a master gardener, I've got a gunsmith, and I've got a mechanic. I can't think of three better neighbors to have. You know,
See, that's a heck of a good mix.
right? And they're all good people. And they live right in our little area. And we don't sit there and hang out on the weekends with each other. But, there's a stray, dog gets loose, we call each other. "Hey, well, notice this,
Right.
or I saw a coyote on my trail cam," stuff like that.
Right. And those are the things that make a difference. Even if your family like mine is kind of spread out,
Mhm,
we have family along the Gulf Coast, around Louisiana and Texas. The general consensus is, okay, you have an incident, grab all your crap and come here.
mhm.
If we have an incident, we're going there. If both of us have an incident, we're going to this person's house. And everyone has already spoken about it. So we
Oh, yeah,
have places to go. And I'm fortunate, my daughter and her fiance, you got an oncologist and a veterinary biologist who
that's
does
awesome.
surgeries. Those are two good medical people to have.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I'm
so,
lucky my wife's a nurse practitioner, so
okay. So,
and
yeah.
she's a former emergency room nurse in the Bronx, so she
Oh, God.
she knows her stuff,
Yeah, she probably sewn up a lot of things
she's
that
been there
most
and she's
nurses
done
don't.
that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good to have that kind of stuff. I worry too. Like, we had our cousins over last weekend, and these people are from North Carolina. They're up here in our area, and there's a funeral for their dad had passed away, and I showed him the prep room, and he was like, "Holy crap!" And he's like, "Wow, well, this is what I wanted to do when all this stuff started to set off. And I said, his name is Brandon. I said, Brandon, I said, this is, we have all this because we know that this isn't just for us. There's going to be people that are going to be coming to us, for
Right.
those in the know. Like my parents know down, they're in Virginia. They're about 5 hour or 3 hours south. They know that if something goes off, and we've had this talk, they come up here. They come to
Right.
us
Get
and
away.
right, and load the car with whatever food you got in the back, and take some pairs of clothes, or whatever, and you come up to us, and
Right.
we put you together, and we figure it out. So, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
And even making arrangements with coworkers and friends, like, hey, if there's an emergency and I'm traveling in Houston, I have people there who've told me, hey, if something goes down, come here and at least get yourself organized for the
hmm
next, because hell, 3 hours of sleep, a coffee, and a little bit of time to figure out what my next move is could be all the difference, especially
hmm
if I'm flying. I can't bring per se a get home bag in an airplane.
right.
So I've had to get very modular and creative with some of my stuff.
hmm
And I'm sure there's stuff I would find I should have had that I couldn't
Yeah,
because the TSA got offended. But Prepper Book Club had this question.
it's a
If you
good
had
one.
an extra 100 right now, what would you put it towards?
I would put half of it into some form of preservative for my wealth, whether that's precious metals or tools, and then the other half I'd probably put into food. Go out there and get like large staples, get like a 50-pound sack of rice or something like that. I would, you want to spread it, and it's $100. I mean, that's some people. That's all they can put into prepping for a month.
Yeah,
So I think I would go into something that would preserve the wealth. Try to put
that's a
fifty
good
dollars
point.
into that, and then take the other 50 and put it into food. So that way
Yeah,
you're kind of diversifying, just like you would in economics. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You
no.
diversify. You
Well,
know.
that's how people lost all their money in the Great Depression is they
Sure.
put all their money in the railroads or whatever. And when that took a dump, they went and threw themselves off the buildings in New York and Chicago. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, let me see if there are any other questions out here. Hold on, I clicked the wrong thing and my chat went away. Here we go. No coffee, no cards. Wolf, we can't be friends anymore. Right now, that everyone's making jokes now about
Oh, I
cards
buy
and
coffee
rum.
like a mofo. I'm serious. That's a big prep for me. I have to. There will be
Yeah,
coffee and SHF, and my wife will have chocolate. So
yeah. And I'll tell you what, I used to have those, when you go to Lowe's, those plastic storage shelves, the little
sure.
black ones with the yellow corner.
Yeah, yeah,
I bought a slew of them, 3 or 4, when I moved into this house, and they can't handle cases of water. And, so I was limited. And the commercial shelving went on sale, and I was able to get them for a really good deal. It cost me a little chunk, but yeah, there's a 10,000 pound rated shelf. It took me
yeah.
a good 18 hours to assemble everything by myself. But man, I can put whatever I
Oh,
want,
you'll
and
have them
and
forever
just
too.
oh yeah, and just having the right storage setup
Sure.
can make a huge difference. And now I'm looking at all this room. I'm like, and I can look at what I have and go, okay, I see some gaps here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You can kind of look at what's going on. So, folks, that's a cheap prep right there is organize yourself somehow.
yeah.
Uh,
And
us
also
too.
think unconventionally. It's you bring that up. I remember in the great 2020 toilet paper debacle. I was in Costco, and everybody was buying all of this like toilet paper, and I went over into the paper goods for the business owners area, and they had um, the 50 pack of the big box of the scraper paper, as I called it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was half as much as the Downy and the whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And we bought a couple boxes. Like we're literally about to put one of those boxes down, and it's 3 years later.
Oh, yeah. I
So
got one of those too, the generic,
yeah,
BS paper,
yep.
but it's the whole case.
Oh god, yeah, and they store well too.
Oh, yeah. It just, yeah, it floors me. Actually, the soap, everyone was looking for sanitizer and liquid soap. And it was a big commotion in Target and Walmart. And I'm like, you guys, there's got to be a better way. So I go around the end cap, and the Ivory and Dove bars, like bar soap
Hmm.
that's been around for 400 years,
Yeah.
it was there. Nobody was touching them. Still $2.99 for
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
pack of 50. So I bought 2 packs, and we use them for other stuff too, but
Yep.
look for those alternatives, because yeah, that was silly. People packing up, and oh, you have another vote for the don't mess with my coffee or my chocolate.
Yes,
So
absolutely correct. Prepping by faith. Yeah, that's the thing, and that's another thing. I tell this to people when you're prepping or whatever. We're all on budgets, but don't make it miserable. Don't just eat beans and rice, and get things that that you're going to actually eat. Um, in a SHTF kind of situation. Don't
yeah,
don't just my kids love ramen, so I have a crap load of ramen. Is it good for them? No, but can I prep the crap out of it, and will it last a long time and keep them happy and eating? Absolutely. So,
yeah, and also it's calories, and in an
oh
emergency,
yes.
calories, a little sodium,
Hmm.
not a bad thing.
That's what I tell them with canned foods. Don't go get the green beans, get the carrots, get the yams and the syrup, and get the peas. Those are the most high caloric cans of vegetables out there. And you
Right.
put that over rice, it's good. And
Oh
peanut
yeah.
butter. Peanut butter is another one that you can good protein. It doesn't store great for a long time, but it'll be you can have it for a while.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I reorganized everything, I wound up there were a lot of cans that got dented, they got damaged, some were old.
Hmm.
I donated some to the food bank locally.
Yeah,
Uh, and I'm trying, I know you can keep them past expiration. In my mind, I want to keep everything as fresh as I can. So when something does happen,
sure.
I have the, I guess, maximum freshness going forward,
Oh
as
yeah,
opposed to, oh, all my crap's already expired. Um,
yeah. We've
Although I
got
did
to.
find an MRE that the Skittles were melted into a bar of
Oh,
ugly, and that wound up in the trash. I didn't
yeah, that's the
dare
thing.
eat
I
that one.
tell my wife, I was in the restaurant business. Just use the smell test. Your
Yeah,
God gave you an excellent form of smell for a reason. If it smells off, or it's putting a red flag in your brain when you're looking at it, feeling it, or tasting it, or smelling it, man, don't
something's
don't do
wrong.
it.
Yeah.
Something's off.
Nope, nope, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll do that. We'll smell stuff, and I'll be like, yeah, it's okay. Oof, that's got to go.
so I guess the last one, and then we'll kind of close it up because we just went over. I just looked up at the time and went, "Holy cow, we've been chit-chatting for an hour and 15 minutes almost." How do you vet people when building a community?
Well, I
That's a
run
tough
them
one.
through a background check. No, I'm just kidding. I what I do is I just get to know them.
Mhm.
I just you don't show everybody everything, but there's this lady that I met through a massage, strangely enough, and she just moved to our area from Alaska, and we're joking about how all Alaskans just by they're just all natural preppers, and we got to know each other and talked and everything, and I like her, and now I'm trading eggs to her for massages, you know, because we have extra eggs from our chicken. And it's like, all right, let's turn this into something. So every Thursday I go over there and I, knock her off another couple dozen of eggs. And, we just talk. We talk for about 20, 30 minutes each time. So I guess the
Yeah,
best thing to do is just to get to know people.
yeah.
You can tell after a few conversations
Mhm.
if they're crazy or
If you're very attuned, people can only hold an act for so long and
yes.
things pop out.
Yeah, yeah, you'll figure it out. You'll see right through them. They'll say something, or they'll act some way, or they'll ask a question that's off, or you'll figure it out. A
Yeah.
few different times, you can you get the idea. Like, okay, this person is there's something off.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Uh, this Cold War, I guess, one thing you had done differently. Uh,
For me, uh, I wish I had better. I'm I'm an I don't want to call myself an academic. I'm a reader. And I think a lot of times I read and then I don't have the confidence in doing. And if I could do things differently, it would be less reading and knowing all the different ins and outs of something and more of the just doing it. Like I read all about solar generators and I read about them and read about them and read about them. and then I finally put one together. And if I would have just gotten it together and just kind of putting it together for the first time reading, instead of sitting there being all anxiety out that I was going to do something wrong, or I was going to, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's better sometimes. I get mired in reading, and I think I just need to go out and do things. Like right now, I've never really canned food. Now I've got people in our group that have, so that's another thing. A lot of time I'll just be like, oh, well, that person knows that skill. I don't have to really consider it. But
Right.
I think that's another thing that's, what happens if that person isn't around. So
Right.
I would say less reading and more, getting your hands, I don't want to say dirty, but just doing things.
Yeah. No, that's a really good advice. I wish I'd have been a little more organized early on because I was really a hurricane prepper for
Hmm.
years before I became a full blown
Yeah, me too.
evolution. Because we get hit by hurricanes on the Gulf Coast
Oh,
repeatedly.
sure.
We had that down as to an art form. And what's funny, neighbors in Houston went through the same hurricanes as me. Neighbors in Louisiana. Well, the Cajuns were very well prepared, but like the folks in Houston were very hit and miss. You had some that were Boy Scout families and they had everything. They had the little lanterns, and
Oh, yeah.
other folks were walking to the store in the rain. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's not like the hurricane appeared out of nowhere. We've known it's coming for 7 days. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, the hands-on thing, the more I'm doing it now with the newer gear and trying to branch out, the more I'm learning. So
Good.
yeah, you can't understate the value of that. Well, my friend, we went a little bit over. We went an hour and 15 minutes, man. This, as always, has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, you're easy to talk to,
It's
yeah, it's
appreciate that.
so
It's
yeah, so I was looking up, I was like, wow, we've been talking for like 48 minutes.
yeah,
So,
and but this is important stuff. Folks need to understand something's not stable. However,
no,
it may or may not be a small war, but something's wrong.
yeah, there's things that are
And
off.
there are things we can do to kind of protect ourselves. And hopefully we covered some of that for all these folks.
Mhm.
Um, to all my mods there, my mother Spark, I think Vision had to jump, Donna, and there were a few others in there. I'm lost track of who was in here. But thank you all to my mods. If you have not had a chance, I've put the link in there. Subscribe to this fine gentleman. You will learn so much. If it wasn't for my schedule, I'd probably see all your reports. But you and I are in the same boat. We're just running like
Yeah,
crazy
it's
people.
tough. I feel bad too because there's a lot of preppers. I just don't have the time to sit there and and watch. I feel bad, but it is what it is,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
I
okay.
tr- you ever notice you'll sometimes see 3 or 4 comments from me at once because I'll take like 20,
Yeah,
30
yeah,
minutes and go, okay, who didn't I comment on? I'm going to help my friends out. And I start poking
yeah,
lights and
yeah,
leaving
yeah.
comments. And I'll do that for like 15 minutes straight for
Hmm.
all my friends. And then I'll
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
get back to work. But yeah, folks, look, follow this gentleman and, pay attention to what's going on. Now's a great time to and see if you can inspire someone new. You
Yeah,
never
yeah,
know.
yeah. Add value. I think another thing my dad used to say: add value. Go out there and
That's spot on.
do things and try to add value to the world, whatever that may be.
Heck yeah. No, that 100%, man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Prepper now, if you want to hang out just for a minute, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. We're going to call this one a night, and I wish you all the best. God bless, Godspeed. Any closing thoughts, PN?
No, I'll just do my usual: stack stock, stick to your plan, keep your head in a swivel, and your powder dry. So,
There you
and God
go.
bless you.
Y'all be safe. God bless and take care.